Also tonight, there's peer pressure, there's bullying, and then there are gangs.
Parents try to keep their kids safe, but what happens when their classmates have a different plan in mind? In a 12 on Your Side investigation, Jessica Dill looks into how schools handle criminals.
In the past week alone, an Aiken County student was arrested for threatening his school, and 2 Richmond County students were arrested for buying and selling guns on school grounds. So who exactly is your child sitting next to in homeroom? Today we get...
Take it from me, getting stabbed and shot, it's not fun. Being locked down in prison the rest of your life ain't fun.
Like many 30-year-olds, Chad Williams is working to get his life on a successful track. But to do that, this former gang member has to fight off his violent past.
It's wrong, and I know it's wrong now, but back then I didn't, I didn't really have no heart. My heart was like, it was black, it was cold.
Williams joined a gang at 13 years old. He was shot 3 times, stabbed 7 times, and sent to prison at the age of 15.
Got kind of mixed up with the wrong people, started getting in trouble in school, stealing, robbing, stuff like that, getting involved with drugs.
By the time he was 19 years old, he had been sent to prison 3 separate times. But when he wasn't behind bars, he was in Aiken Public Schools.
It is our job as a community to educate them. This is a public school, and we are not going to deny anybody an education.
So what does that mean? It means your child could be sitting in a classroom with criminals.
I was just such a handful in school. With fighting, lashing out on principals, teachers.
Right now, there are hundreds of minors in Richmond and Aiken County schools on probation, with charges from assault and battery to drugs to sex offenses. Walking the hallways, sitting in class, perhaps befriending your children.
I found a group of people that brought me in, treated me like a family, like everything was good. And then over time, it went from the treating you like a family to bossing you around, telling you what you could and couldn't do, what you had to do.
But for parents that want names, well, in Georgia, that option is out. A privacy law prevents even the schools from knowing who committed crimes unless it was a felony. But in South Carolina, the schools are allowed to know. McDougall says they will take students with a record and blend them in with others to give them a role model.
That is up to the school's decision and the principal's decision. And typically, they will consult others. They will look at what are the strengths of the dynamics in the classroom. They'll look at the strengths of the teachers. They'll look at the makeup. They'll look at what support. They'll look at sometimes scheduling to see when they can go in and offer support throughout the day. So there's a combination of things.
But their focus, keeping all students and teachers safe.
You're putting psychologists based in certain schools so that they can go and intervene and give the teachers these skills and to give the teachers some of these interventions so that we're just not casting them aside, but supporting these kids, supporting these staff, and supporting the whole school community.
Chad Williams says support is key. 6 years out of prison and crime-free, Williams now returns to those high school classrooms, but this time around, he's trying to be the good influence, telling his story to make sure students don't choose his path.
Just take an hour out your day if that's all you got, and try to get on a level with your kid and guide your kid in the right path or where you want to go, because if you don't, even though that kid might have everything else he wants, all that stuff becomes nothing to him. And he's going to try to fill that void and that hurt, and that pain.
Now, Chad is trying to turn his life around, but says it's hard with, of course, you guessed it, those tattoos, including many he gave himself while in prison. He says they are really holding him back. He's raising money to get them removed. So if you want to help, I put all that information on our website of where you can go to donate to help him get those removed.
He's doing the right thing, but it's hard to look past all that.
It really is. And he knows that. He's aware of that.
Going back to your report, though, you say there are hundreds of kids with records in schools?
Hundreds of kids. I looked it up, and you can look it up online, too. Out of the past year, the youth development of who they've arrested out on probation right now. In Richmond County, 271 kids are out on probation. In Aiken County, 187 kids are out on probation. So if they're on bond, if they're out on probation, then technically they can be back into the schools and are back in the schools right now.
Something a lot of parents had no idea about all that.
Absolutely. And then actually we're going to look in tomorrow into, how you know if your kid is hanging out with the right kids in schools and, signs that you can look for.
Good enough. Thank you, Jessica.
Right now, there are hundreds of minors in our county school systems on probation with charges ranging from assault and battery to drugs, even to sex offenses.
And they could be sitting right next to your son or daughter in class. In part 2 of her On Your Side investigation, Jessica Dill shows you ways to know if your child is getting involved in the wrong crowd.
The world of gangs, it's constantly changing. So how do you know if your child is being influenced by the wrong people? There are signs to look out for.
Being a military family with an 11-year-old and 14-year-old son, the Browns know they run a tight ship.
We have developed a relationship with the children where we can trust them, but they also know that choices have consequences. I'm a Jamaican mom and I have no problem popping them. Yes.
They make sure the boys' influences are good influences.
Basically, I believe that your environment helps to determine what your children are exposed to.
But what happens when that school bell rings and all children are mixed into the same classrooms?
When them kids come back in them schools, other kids see how they're acting and mainly how other kids in the schools maybe fear them.
Chad Williams would know he joined a gang at age 13.
A lot of other kids, you know, in the schools, I think, I see, you know, and fear and want to be a part of that, you know, so they'll feel like they have some kind of belonging and some kind of power themselves as young men and women.
They're looking to fit in. It's very interesting to read the dynamics of the group and see, you know, who with the clothes and the attitude and the music and the hair.
So your child's new shirt, is it a fashion trend or a gang sign? This world of signs evolves on a daily basis, so even the most knowing parent might not be in the know.
The information you always hear about is probably old anyway. So we have to look for some changes in the household. All right, of a mindset.
Your child's style, attitude, and hair, it's going to change. That's part of growing up. But that doesn't mean there aren't clues they aren't befriending the wrong people. Harris says look for a disconnect in personality. Look for a shoebox under their bed and what may be hidden inside. Look for items they have but you know they can't afford. Jewelry, cell phone, nice shoes.
Where's he getting that? Doesn't have a job. Where's he get that? They're going to most likely say, my friend traded me for that. Well, most likely he's put in work for somebody.
That work? Orders from older gang members. Teachers, there are signs for you to look for too.
Well, just look for what they're writing in their papers, their essays. If they're starting to do letters backwards, or they're highlighting a certain letter, or they can't do that number, or they're speaking a language that's not the normal English grammar, these are indicators that might be sensitive to a gang world.
Schools have to walk a fine line when deciding where to put students with criminal charges.
A lot of times we mix them in, but you've got to build in supports. You've got to build in some things for the teachers, the counselors, you've got to go in with the psychologists. You've got to even go in and work with that good kid to go, look, this is how you can make a difference. And you've got to build that kid up to be a big hero.
As for the Browns, they plan to keep running that tight ship and raise their own heroes.
You know, and my hope for them is that they'll grow up, they'll be successful. They know that, you know, the rule applies. Come 18, they're in somebody's college, somebody's military, or underneath somebody's bridge, and it's their choice.
Well, since legally South Carolina schools can know who has a record, McDougall tells me the Aiken County school system has really allocated a lot of resources to this exact issue. They've made a Safe Schools initiative, which really combines Harris's gang prevention group, public safety, and the schools to make sure that dialogue keeps flowing and that really the schools stay ahead of the game here.
What about parents who are watching right now? They're just realizing, uh-oh, we need help.
Right. They are actually encouraged, parents, you are encouraged to go to the schools. They're actually going to set up interventionists, a lot of the schools do, to meet with the family. And there are also places out in the community that the schools will help them gear toward. All of this is online, WRDW.com.
And I think Jamaican Mom should write a book.
Yeah, you know.
She is on it, right?
She was wonderful, wasn't she? She's like, I'm not afraid to pop them if they get in trouble.
Good advice right there, Jessica. Thanks a lot.